In science and engineering, the goal is almost always perfection, making things cleaner, stronger, more flawless. But today, we're diving into a story that just flips that whole idea on its head. What if the secret to making something revolutionary wasn't getting rid of the flaws, but actually engineering the perfect one?
So let me ask you this. What if you had a battery that you could charge every single day for more than 64 years? That's what we're talking about here. Over 23,000 charge cycles. It sounds impossible, right? Well, that's the scale of the breakthrough we're going to unpack. So how on earth did they do it? Let's get into it.
All right, here's our roadmap. First, we're going to set the stage and look at the big problem scientists are trying to solve with batteries. Then we'll meet the key player here, a material called Prussian blue, and we're going to expose its secret fatal flaw. After that, we get to the really clever part, the deliberate defect that changed everything. We'll look at the mind-blowing results, and then we'll talk about what this all means for the future of energy.
So our modern world runs on energy. And as we switch to renewables like solar and wind, we've got a huge problem: storage. We need giant batteries to save up all that power for when it's dark or the wind stops blowing. Now, the lithium-ion batteries in our phones and cars are great, but lithium is getting really expensive, and frankly, there's just not enough of it to go around. That's why the race is on to find something better.
And one of the frontrunners in that race are these things: aqueous potassium ion batteries, or AKIBs for short. On paper, they are just fantastic. They use potassium, which is way more common and cheaper than lithium, and their core electrolyte is water-based. That means they're much, much safer than lithium-ion batteries, which, as you know, can be pretty flammable. So they check all the boxes: cheap, safe, sustainable. Sounds perfect.
But, and this is a big but, there's been a massive catch. The materials inside these batteries just don't hold up. They basically start to fall apart and dissolve in that water-based electrolyte. And what that means is they have a really frustratingly short lifespan, which has been the huge roadblock keeping them from being used in the real world.
Okay, so let's zoom in on one of the most promising materials for these batteries, a compound called Prussian blue. It has this amazing crystal structure for holding on to potassium ions, but it has this tiny, natural defect baked right into it, a hidden weakness that ultimately causes the whole thing to fail.
So this weakness comes from something called vacancies. You can literally think of them as tiny, empty spots, missing pieces in the material's crystal lattice. It's kind of like having microscopic cracks in a building's foundation. In normal Prussian blue, these flaws are scattered all over the place, and they're what's called a low-spin type. Just think of them as the wrong shape. They create stress and instability in the structure, and that is the core of the problem.
And you can actually see the problem right here. So look at the model up top, the one labeled B. That shows the crystal structure with all those random problematic low-spin vacancies. Now look at the graph right below it, labeled E. See how wide and sloppy that curve is? That's the signal of a battery that's really struggling. It's slow, it's inefficient, and it's unstable. Those little cracks are bringing the whole system down.
And yeah, the result is pretty much what this little sad face tells you. The energy transfer is sluggish and inefficient, which leads to a slow charge rate and a really short lifespan. It's just a bad battery. Okay, but this is where the story gets so cool. The researchers had this completely brilliant, counterintuitive idea. They thought, okay, instead of trying to get rid of all the flaws, what if we engineered a different kind of flaw? What if we created an intentional, perfectly designed defect that would actually fix the problem?
And this is the genius of it. So on the left, you have the problem, the old, unstable, low-spin vacancy. And on the right, you have the solution, the new, engineered, high-spin vacancy. If the old flaw was like a jagged crack causing stress, the new one is like a perfectly shaped socket. It's put there on purpose, and it does two amazing things. It relieves the stress in the structure, and it actually opens up new, super stable pathways for the potassium ions to travel. It makes the whole thing stronger.
And would you just look at the results? It is a night and day difference. Okay, so look at the chart again, but this time, focus on the model labeled A. That's the new engineered structure. Now look at the graph below it labeled D. See how sharp and clean and symmetrical that peak is? That is the textbook signature of an awesome battery. It charges and discharges fast, efficiently, and most importantly, reliably. And there it is, the happy ending. By engineering the right kind of flaw, these researchers got lightning-fast kinetics, a high charge rate, and an ultra-long lifespan. They literally turned a fatal flaw into the battery's greatest strength.
Okay, so the theory is absolutely brilliant, but does it actually hold up in the real world?
Let's get to the numbers, because this is where things go from clever to just jaw-dropping. The researchers really put this new material through its paces.
First up, a major durability test. They took their new material, they call it KFHCF, and they cycled it 10,000 times. And even after all that, it still held on to more than 85% of its original capacity. That is just exceptional stability.
I mean, this table really puts it into perspective. After 2,000 cycles, the new material lost almost nothing. It kept 99.73% of its capacity. The old material? It had faded down to just 14%. That's not an improvement, that's a whole different ballgame.
So why is it so much better? Well, a huge reason is this thing called the energy barrier. You can think of it like a hill the potassium ions have to climb to get in and out of the material. And as you can see here, the hill for the new material on the left is way lower. That means the ions can zip back and forth with way less effort, which makes the battery more efficient and helps it last so much longer. And that brings us to the headline number. When they took this new material and built it into a full, complete battery, it survived for an unbelievable 23,500 charge cycles. That's not just an improvement, it is a world record for this entire class of battery.
So, what does it all mean? A record-breaking experiment in a lab is one thing, but how does this actually help us with that massive grid storage problem we talked about? Well, let's look at why this tiny engineered flaw could actually have a huge impact on our future.
And this is not just theory. The team actually built working pouch cell batteries with this stuff. You can see them right here, lighting up this LED sign. This is such a critical step because it shows this isn't just a discovery that works in a beaker. It's something you can build real-world tech with.
So how does this new battery stack up against everything else out there? Well, this spider plot gives us the answer. Each point is a different performance measure, like speed, capacity, and lifespan. And the bigger the colored area, the better the battery. And I mean, it's pretty clear, right? The red area from this new material just dominates. It doesn't just get better at one thing, it sets a whole new standard across the board.
It's really an incredible story of scientific creativity. By embracing an imperfection, by designing a defect with purpose, these researchers absolutely shattered what was thought possible. And it leaves us with this really powerful question. Could this totally counterintuitive idea, designing the perfect flaw, be the blueprint for the next generation of safe, cheap, and ridiculously long-lasting batteries that we all so desperately need?